Hello everyone, GoldenNova here, and it's time for this month's Quasar Commander video. This month, they gave me a choice from several options, one of those being to cover the runner-up in this month's Patron Poll. And since we had a tie for second place, I'm just gonna go ahead and pick the one that's been on the list longer. So today, I'm bringing you the foremost expert in pink card countermeasures, Jinzo. Piloted by the not-so-psychic Esperoba in the anime during the Battle City arc, spoilers by the way, Jinzo made a massive mark on the community. Releasing as a standalone card in the October 2002 core set Pharaoh's Servant, this monster was one of Yu-Gi-Oh's earliest floodgate effects, and boy was it a doozy. At the time, one of the best ways to protect yourself from your opponent, or to keep them off their own game plan, was with trap cards, and the quality of said cards were off the chart. Trap Hole, Mirror Force, Imperial Order, and Solemn Judgment were all massive powerhouses, and if Jinzo stuck on the field, all those cards immediately became useless. And as the quality of trap cards increased, with the release of cards like Bottomless Trap Hole and Torrential Tribute, Android Psycho Shocker's utility grew alongside him. And being a 1 tribute monster with strong stats made it difficult to out in battle as well. As such, Jinzo was adopted by the wider player base as a way to strip their opponent of options. And while no cohesive deck was ever made around the iconic monster, that hasn't stopped the designers from printing support in honor of its legacy. So today, we're gonna tap into the morphogenetic field to connect with all things Jinzo, open our third eye to see how all the cards work together, then find whomst among you have the potential to rise to a higher plane of existence. It's time for some galaxy brain takes with Jinzo. But before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy what I do. Once we get to 50k, we'll be doing our next 5Ds video on Akiza, and every sub helps. Also, check out my Discord where we're scaring players with this info, and my Twitch where you can watch me put all my lessons to the test live with viewer duels. And if you want to go that extra mile, join my Patreon where you can get my videos early and help us reach these video milestones. Thank you all so much for watching, and now, back to the video. So, what's the deal with Jinzo? Well, many of them are dark attribute machine type monsters, and hating on trap cards is the name of the game. We do all kinds of things like shut them off, destroy them, or gain benefits if our opponent has any. How do we win? Well, we've got monsters and they've got attack points. What else do you want? And no discussion of these cards can begin without covering the Psycho Mantis lookalike themselves. It's Jinzo! A level 6 monster with 2400 attack and 1500 defense, and while on the field, trap cards and their effects on the field can't be activated, and the effects of trap cards on the field are negated. So in practice, this turns off any continuous trap cards on the field, and locks down any trap cards that haven't been flipped up yet. However, you'll want to keep in mind that Jinzo does have some blind spots. One being that it specifically works on trap cards and effects on the field, so if your opponent has any activated or trigger effects in the grave, you're out of luck. Also, while Jinzo is safe from things like Bottomless Trap Hole and Torrential Tribute, because those cards respond to a summon, traps that negate summons before they can happen are fair game, since Jinzo's continuous effect doesn't kick in until it actually hits the board. Regardless, it's still a great way to shut down a variety of the game's most powerful effects, as this still counteracts things like Infinite Impermanence, Evenly Matched, and Ice Dragon's Prison. Which is how you know that Jinzo is a filthy combo player due to their hatred of interactive gameplay. Though honestly, I can relate. Alright, now that we've got the groundwork laid out, it's time to talk about the rest of the cards that branch out from this initial design choice. Which means our second monster is Jinzo number 7, a level 2 monster with 500 attack and 400 defense that can attack directly. And that's it. Wow, this is an oddball of design, I'll tell you that. You had a few of these monsters running around in the early sets that could attack directly, but had abysmal stat lines, so unless you were all in on attack boosters to give them some heft, they were going to get wiped out pretty quickly. But what does attacking directly have to do with anti-trap card measures? Well, now might be a good time to mention that Jinzo means android in Japanese, so they're both tied to an overarching concept without necessarily being part of the same thematic core, though they did actually make Jinzo an archetype, so now they're stuck with it. For now, I'm just going to ignore how weird it is that number 7 came out before the base Jinzo, especially because it raises the question of what happened to Jinzos 2 through 6. Jinzo Returner is a level 3 monster with 600 attack and 1400 defense that can attack directly. Huh, I guess they really did bring this card back into the fold. Also, when this card is sent to the grave, you can special summon a Jinzo from your grave and destroy it during the end phase. Make sure you check the wording on here as it revives Jinzo, not a Jinzo monster. The self-destruct button kind of blows, but it only does it on your end phase, so if it gets sent to the grave during your opponent's turn, you still get to keep that Jinzo for your whole turn to find something to do with it. The name is a bit misleading though. They got the returner part, but they didn't get the lever part. Jinzojector is a level 4 monster with 800 attack and 2000 defense whose name becomes Jinzo while on the field or in the grave. So good news, anything that needs Jinzo specifically now has another target. You can tribute this card to add a Jinzo monster from your deck to your hand, except a copy of itself, then reveal all set cards in your opponent's spell and trap zones. And if there are any trap cards among them, you can special summon Jinzo monsters from your hand up to the number of trap cards revealed. This might have been a bit more intimidating if we had more Jinzo monsters to work with, but for now, gaining some knowledge on top of potentially summoning even a single big android is good enough for me. It's also got what has to be the biggest whiplash in art design I've seen in a long time. Like, it's got these massive wires coming out of its head, each one tipped with some kind of AV jack they can plug into, presumably people's brains, but they gave Jector a mask that constantly has a tiny little shocked face. Oh no, what happened to all my plugs? Psychic Bounder is a level 4 light machine with 1700 attack and 1000 defense, and if normal or special summoned, you can add specifically Jinzo, or a spell or trap card that specifically lists Jinzo in its text from your deck to your hand. And when another monster you control is attacked by an opponent's monster before damage calculation, you can destroy both the attacking monster and this card. But, that just means you can attack Psychic Bounder first to avoid dealing with that. And there's no effect that draws attacks away from Psychic Bounder to force this, so yeah, kind of a departure from its original form, Reflect Bounder, which punished your opponent from actually attacking this by effectively turning into Magic Cylinder. The on-summon effect is nice, but you're not bound to get much more use out of it. Psychic Mega Cyber is a level 6 monster with 2200 attack and 1200 defense, and if your opponent controls more spells and traps than you do, you can special summon this card from your hand. When this card declares an attack on an opponent's monster while you control Jinzo, you can tribute this card to place that opponent's monster face up in their spell and trap card zone as a continuous trap card. So it's kind of removal? Those monsters certainly aren't using their effects when they're trap cards, and because your opponent controls one, any of your Jinzo effects that care about that now have a guaranteed payoff. The only downside is that you already need to control base Jinzo to activate that effect, so you do need to have built a board to get this going. Though I have to say, the summon condition being a reverse of the original Fiend Mega Cybers, where your opponent needs to control 2 or more monsters than you do, is a nice touch. They also changed it from a warrior to a machine for the Jinzo deck, but considering it used to be the Fiend Mega Cyber and is now a Psychic Mega Cyber, we're no closer to getting one that has a name that matches its actual type. Jinzo the Machine Menace is a level 7 monster with 2400 attack and 1500 defense, and if a trap card is face up on the field or in either grave, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, this card's level becomes 6 until the end of this turn. And during the main phase, as a quick effect, you can tribute this card to special summon Jinzo specifically from your hand or grave, then you can destroy all trap cards your opponent controls, and if a card is set, it's revealed. This is meant to emulate how Jinzo works in the anime, where on top of negating trap cards that are on the field, destroys them when summoned. So Machine Menace gives us a way to do that, and at quick effect speed no less. It's also nice that when summoning it from your hand, it checks both players' fields and graves, so if you've used an imperm this game, you've already met Machine Menace's summoning requirements. But why did they make this a base level 7 monster? Are they, like, allergic to giving the Jinzos matching levels? And why isn't this Jinzo number 7? I have so many questions. Jinzo Lord is a level 8 monster with 2600 attack and 1600 defense that can't be normal summoned or set, and must be special summoned by sending a face-up Jinzo you control to the grave. Remember, not Jinzo Monster, just Jinzo, though Jector does become Jinzo while on the field, so you do have options. While on the field, trap cards can't be activated and the effects of all face-up trap cards on the field are negated. and once per turn, you can destroy all face-up trap cards on the field to burn your opponent for 300 damage for each card destroyed by this effect. So it's a slightly more powerful Jinzo that has the option to destroy face-up traps once per turn, but the catch is that once you use it, you'll likely never activate the effect of that same copy ever again, because Jinzo Lord prevents activations, so unless they just place trap cards face up, you won't actually be able to do it again. It's tempting to look at this bigger Jinzo, along with the fact that you can summon it out quite easily with Ejector, and try to run this over base Jinzo, but honestly, don't bother. The additional effect doesn't outweigh the restrictive summoning conditions, and doesn't particularly synergize with our other cards, especially our new ones. Besides, what's this thing the Lord of? Belts? We've already got a Jinzo with literal hair plugs, you've gotta step up your game. We also have an extra deck monster for some reason. Presenting Jinzo Layered, a rank 6 Xyz monster with 2400 attack and 1500 defense, requiring any 2 level 6 monsters as material. You can attach a material to target a face-up monster your opponent controls and take control of it until the end phase, but it can't attack or activate its effects. And if a trap card is on the field, you contribute a monster, and if you do, destroy a face-up card on the field. So it can steal monsters, then potentially convert them into removal, because you aren't doing much else with them. Here's the thing though. This card already exists. Dampier Vampire Sheridan takes the same material, has more attack, can go after any card your opponent controls without needing a trap card to activate, sends cards to the grave so it bypasses any destruction protection, and steals monsters if they're sent from the field to the grave by a card effect. And you get to use that monster's effects! I can see a world where Layered is the preferred in-archetype choice, but it would require a core set level investment in Jinzo support. Maybe there's some interactions out there I don't know about where you'd want to destroy your own cards, which this card can do instead of Dampier, but I doubt it has enough layers to it to make it worth it. Alright, that's all the monsters, now it's time for the spells and traps. Law of the Cosmos is a normal spell card that allows your opponent to set a trap card directly from their hand or deck to the field. If they do so, you special summon a Jinzo from your deck. If they don't, add a Jinzo or a monster that specifically lists Jinzo in its text from your deck to your hand. This is really funny because if they do go to set the trap card, it becomes effectively useless once Jinzo hits the board, so they're almost always just going to give you the search anyway. Thankfully, you can grab Psychic Bounder so you can do this all over again next turn, or Ejector if they've already got a big field of back row you want to scout. There might be more play sequences out there, but I'm actually pretty distracted by the card art. It feels like I'm about to start up a new game of Myst. Cyber Energy Shock is a quick play spell card that can only be activated if you control Jinzo. It targets a card on the field, destroys it, then if it was a trap card, you can apply one of these effects. Negate the effects of a face-up card on the field until the end of the turn, or all Jinzos you control gain a permanent 800 point boost. Remember, this checks for Jinzo specifically, so no Layered or Lord interactions. But that's fine, because making base Jinzo a 3200 attack monster is nothing to sneeze at, especially if you have multiples. However, you're not always going to be destroying a trap card, but notably you can nuke your own if you need the option. But being quick effect removal that can hit anything with upside ain't half bad, and is probably the best piece of Jinzo support we've covered so far. Honestly, I'm shocked. Everlasting Alloy is a quick play spell that you can only activate if you control Jinzo, and it has you applying one of two effects. It either makes it so all machine monsters you currently control can't be destroyed by your opponent's card effects until the end of the turn, or can be used in response to a card or effect activation that targets any number of your machine type monsters, and you negate that effect. So you can choose to either resist something like a Raigeki, or keep a machine from getting targeted by something like an Effect Veiler. It's also notable that this card is not once per turn, so the more you have, the safer you'll be. But it does seem like kind of a ripoff when the Everlasting Alloy only lasts until the end of the turn. What a ripoff. Psychic Wave is a quick play spell that you can only activate if you control a machine monster, already loving the fact that it's way more generic to use. You send a Jinzo from your hand or deck to the grave to burn your opponent for 600 damage, and during your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the grave, you can banish this card from your grave, then target a machine monster in your grave. You send a Jinzo monster from your deck to your grave, and if you do, add the targeted monster to your hand. Now, this is some very important wording. The first part is pure setup. If you have a card on hand that can work with an engraved Jinzo, that's fine, but the second part will take care of that for you, because it sends a Jinzo monster, meaning returner is a valid target. So you get to recycle a machine and summon base Jinzo. The only issue is that you can't do it on the same turn, so it's unnecessarily slow. It's less of a wave and more of a splash. Cosmos Channeling is a continuous spell card that has you sending a monster you control that's owned by your opponent to the grave to special summon a machine monster from your hand or grave. And when your opponent draws for their normal draw during the draw phase while you control Jinzo, you can declare a card type, either monster, spell, or trap. Your opponent reveals the card they drew, and if it's the declared card type, send this card to the grave, and if you do, draw a card. This is a rough one. The second effect only works on your opponent's turn, where it's the least useful, and the first effect requires you to take monsters from your opponent. Layered can certainly help with this, but it's your only stealing effect on theme, so you'll need to make sure you run other cards like Crackdown and Mind Control to help cover for this. Don't worry, Mind Control may stop you from tributing the monster, but channeling sends, so it's totally viable. But maybe calm down on the whole channeling the cosmos thing. The only thing you're channeling is that radio. It's wild. Konami will ban Kanye West of all people, but Esperoba still gets to be part of the franchise after confirmed cheating allegations. Can you believe it? Amplifier is an equipped spell card that can only be equipped to Jinzo. The equipped monster's effect does not negate the effects of its controller's trap cards. When this card is removed from the field, destroy the equipped monster, and this card's activation and effect can't be negated. This is an interesting card. If you use it, you can more reliably use trap cards in your Jinzo deck, but you open up another way for your opponent to destroy Jinzo when this card is removed from the field. And if you don't draw into this combination of cards, all your traps will be offline anyway. So really, the best way to run this archetype is to keep your trap card count to a bare minimum. Honestly, out of everything, I'm curious why this card didn't get a retrain, because if any card needed to be amped up, it's this one. Psychic Shockwave is a normal trap card that you can only activate when your opponent activates a trap card. You discard a spell or trap to special summon a level 6 Dark Machine monster from your deck. Now, I know this isn't a Jinzo card. Technically, you can summon any level 6 Dark Machine in response to the activation of a trap card, but realistically, what are you gonna summon? Pendulum Machine? Bonus, you do get to negate the effect of the trap card you chain to once Jinzo hits the field, making this one of the coolest trap stuns ever printed. Besides, they put the android in the art. What did they expect me to do? Alright, so that's all the Jinzo cards, but what do we do with them? Well, the sad part is we don't really have a Jinzo deck. It was always used as a way to supplement other decks, and future support didn't so much as prop up a theme as make it easier to access Jinzo. So outside of big machine beats, we can really only focus on what Jinzo can do for other decks. So what can we play to help them out? Well, first I'd like to highlight a classic Jinzo interaction, Call of the Haunted. If you use it to revive Jinzo, it'll negate the effects of Call of the Haunted once it's all resolved. So even if Call gets removed from the field, Jinzo will be just fine. You can also do this with cards like Escape from the Dark Dimension or Oasis of Dragon Souls. There's also some funny synergies with another Dark Machine archetype, Orcists. While a majority of their cards focus on their own archetype, a few of their cards only mention Dark Machines. Namely, Orcist Nightmare can foolish any Dark Machine from your deck, meaning you can send Jinzo or Jinzo Returner for some quick value. And Orcist Crescendo can search as any member of our theme except Psychic Bounder. The links can also recycle any banished Jinzo monsters, and should you go down the path of playing Amplifier, Dingirsu can ensure the equipped Jinzo isn't immediately destroyed. Team-ups are pretty cool, so why not get some help from our old friend Bandit Keith? That symbol of American exceptionalism loves Dark Machines, so we can use his Heavy Metal Raiders to help summon our Jinzos and give them a nifty attack boost. BM for Blast Spider also provides removal and a bit of burn, and Desperado Barrel Dragon can be a nice backup boss to provide some offensive might and removal. If your Pendulum deck can support this, Jinzo makes for a fine companion to any Pendulum summon. It can't stop Solemn Strike unfortunately, but it essentially shares its protection against Bottomless Trap Hole and Torrential to the rest of your flock. So if those kinds of cards are running rampant, now you have a good countermeasure. As for a silly tech pick, go ahead and give Giltia the D-Knight Soul Spear a try. This card is a big Joey reference, as the 3 card types you can search with this correspond to 3 cards Joey has won from opponents, and one of them is level 6 Dark Machines. And on top of that, you can non-targeting banish a monster that's bigger than Giltia on summon, which is honestly kinda huge. And that's all I've got to say about Jinzo. It's a big piece of the game's history, but hasn't quite seen the same level of success when it comes to retrains and support as its contemporaries. However, I'm confident that one day, Esperoba will stop relying on illegal information, train up their powers, and reclaim the throne of true format threat that Jinzo used to be known for. And if they could also find a way to make them psychics as well so they fit the aesthetic, that would be great. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Am I not seeing that Jinzo is the future of the format, or are its failings truly set in stone? Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't already, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to show your support, ring that bell so you don't miss an episode, and share this video with someone you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. Today's episode was brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commander Harry, the ominous benefactor, Nebula Navigator's 3rd Dynasty, Adam Zajdel, Avi Chali, Kane Senpai, Cameron Berg, Cozyboat 275, Eric, Frankie, Genesis Yu-Gi-Oh!, Gloomba 331, Great Big Pillock, Ironic, John Manji, Julia Sneezer, Larakia, Mana Charge, Marluxia is a girl, Meteornus, Michael Madsen, Mighty Action X, Muzuki Clark, Neo Trinity, Panther J, Rebel King Lucifer, Rem T Bright, RJ the Jank Monarch, Ruxith Sarani, Sophie, apparently, The Fresh Prince of Conair, The Wizard Moose, True Neutral, Xander Wolfensberger and Zyrus, Cosmic Crusaders Ariel Kersey, Bear Sharktopus Studios, Chaz Ghost, Chris Kessler, Corbinisms, Dallas Modeste, Emily, Eva Padilla, Howling Zangetsu, Herbal D, Jesus Garcia, Kale the Dragon, King Scarlet Yu-Gi-Oh!, Lord Whoop-de-Doo, Manga Pages, Marion James E. Picata, Matt Simmons, Nitromo, Sarah Lo Sulshi, Shaquille Solomon, Shooting Star 3300, Starlord 777, Super Purd, Tucker Ordorn and the Legendary Raven, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. I'm only able to continue doing this thanks to the support of these lovely people, so if you'd like to be a part of these credits, as well as help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, please check out my YouTube membership or Patreon links in the description to see if I have anything you'd like on offer. And if you'd like to see another video featuring some real psychic soldiers, check out this video I made covering metal foes. Look, they even have little spoons. And if you want to see 2 Yu-Gi-Tubers going at it, check out Noah Jenk and I's latest series Progression Polls, where your voice shapes the format. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.